Our next three problems are word problems, so they may take a little bit of time for us to discuss through, but the first two really are pretty basic and pretty simple. Tanya was standing on top of a mountain that was 2,400 feet high. Olga was scuba diving 30 feet below sea level. How many feet apart are they? And for word problems, I am a very big fan of making sure that you draw a picture to represent what's taking place. So, since we're talking about sea level, I have my little sea level line. And I use a vertical number line. I know that at sea level is 0. And they talked about the top of the mountain being 2,400 feet. And the scuba diver was 30 feet below sea level. And it wants to know how many feet apart they are. And we talked about in class that you have to be very careful not to just try to find the difference between the two numbers and call that your solution, but rather you want to look at the absolute value of those numbers. What is the distance between 0 and 2,400 in absolute value? Well, that's 2,400. And what's the distance between 0 and negative 30 in absolute value? That is positive 30. And so then we can take our distances, which were the absolute values, and add those together. 2,400 plus 30, which will give us 2,430 feet. That's how far these two are from each other, the combination of 2,400 and 30 feet difference in distance. Problem 29. The first thing in the morning, it was 32 degrees outside. During the day, the temperature rose 5 degrees. By evening, it had cooled down 32 degrees. And by midnight, it had dropped another 13 degrees. What was the temperature at midnight? And so we have a lot of important information. I'm going to go ahead and underline the important stuff so we don't forget it. And then I want to write an expression so that I don't leave out any information. So it was 32 degrees, which is a positive 32 outside to start. And during the day, the temperature rose by 32. So if the temperature rose, that means it went up, so positive 5. By evening, it had cooled down. If it cooled down, that means the temperature went down. So we are now minus 32. And by midnight, it had dropped another 13 degrees. Plus 13. Sorry. Minus 13. Because it dropped. What was the temperature at midnight? The first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and rewrite this problem. Because we talked about the commutative property. And anytime we're adding numbers together, we know that we can relocate those numbers using the commutative property, and the solution will still be the same. And in this case, I have 32. And remember that we can take this minus 32 and rewrite it as plus negative 32 plus 5 minus 13. And the real benefit to using our commutative property to rewrite the order of these numbers is that I can see real quickly that 32 plus negative 32 is going to equal 0. So I'm just going to mark that part of the problem out because it doesn't really give us any extra information since the two numbers cancel each other out. So now I have a positive 5 and a negative 13. I need to find the difference. Difference between the two numbers is 8, and I keep the sign of the larger absolute value number. The larger absolute value number is 13, so its sign was negative. My solution will be negative. So what was the temperature at midnight? Well, it was negative 8 degrees. Problem number 30. A whole town is going on a diet for a television show. There are 200 people in the town participating. 10 people lost 5 pounds each in the first week. 70 people lost 3 pounds each in the first week. 50 people lost 2 pounds each for the first week. 52 people only lost 1 pound for the first week. The rest of the people gained 4 pounds each. What was the total weight loss for the town during that week? Well, we know there's 200 people. That's going to be an important term. 10 people lost 5 pounds. 70 people lost 3 pounds. 50 people lost 2 pounds. 52 people lost 1 pound. And the rest, which we're going to have to determine how many the rest is, gained 4. But we'll get to that rest in just a minute. Let's first start trying to figure out what information all of these other lines can give us. Well, if we have 10 people that lost 5 pounds each, that means one person lost 5, 2 people together lost 10, 3 people together, and so on and so on. So I can write an expression for that by saying 10 times the negative 5, because they lost 5 pounds, equals negative 50. And I'm going to be careful to keep each of these statements with my number of people, number of pounds, and my solution, so that we can use that information for the number of people later when we want to figure out what the rest is. So in the next statement, we check that one off, we used it. 70 people lost 3 pounds, so that would be negative 3. And 70 times negative 3 equals negative 210. Check that off because we used it. 50 people now lost 2 pounds each, so negative 2 equals negative 100. Check that off because I used it. 52 people only lost 1 pound during the first week. That will equal negative 52. So now you're going to use scratch piece of paper, but I get the advantage of using a calculator. And since all of these are negative terms, I know I can just add them up and keep the negative sign. So 50 plus 210 plus 100 plus 52. That was 412 pounds. Negative 412. We also want to know how many people, because we need to figure out what the rest stands for. So I have 10 people plus 70 people plus 50 people plus 52 people. That was 182 people. Lost 412 pounds. Now remember that the rest of the people gained 4 pounds each. So whatever the value of the rest is, gained 4 pounds each, so times positive 4 equals some number. Well, we started with 200 people, and 182 people have already been accounted for. So we need to find out what our rest is. 1, borrow, 9, 10. So 10 minus 2 is 8. 9 minus 8 is 1. So we've accounted for all but 18 people. Well, those 18 people are the ones that gained 4 pounds. And so 18 times 4 is 72. Collectively, they gained 72 pounds. So now we have a value for how much was gained, a value for how much was lost, and we want to know what the total weight loss was. And so we need to find an expression to represent that. So we have 72 pounds gained plus negative 412 pounds, which were lost. And so we're going to find the difference between the two numbers, keep the value or the sign of the larger absolute value number. And 412 is definitely our larger absolute value number, so we're going to keep the negative sign for our solution. So 412 minus 72 sounds like about 340. So your solution is going to be 340 pounds. That was the total weight loss during that week.